Epileptic fits were a bit of a mystery. During the days of witch hunts, if a person had a seizure, some holy people might have put it down to the devil being...
Whoa! We found a witch. May we burn her?
They would first see a van driving around the prison complex. That van would take them to their certain death.
Never get in the van, guys. Never get in the van. Oh my god. Yeah, so far, I'm not passing judgment yet.
He took many lovers, some not exactly willing to go with him, and fornicated with him at the holy sites and also in the paper.
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds terrible. This is a bad man. I'm glad he's dead. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Jeffrey, owner of the channel, the guy that appears in all these videos because I'm the talent. Obviously. Guys, today we're going to be reacting to a very special animated storytime video entitled
The Most Evil Places in the World!
I don't actually know what this video entails, but the clickbait got me. So, I want to watch this with you. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Let's imagine you were around in the late 16th century in the Kingdom of Hungary.
What? 16th century? I'm not even 100% sure when that is. Does that mean in the 1500s or the 1600s? Because if you think about it, 1500s complete the 16th century. So you're in the 16th century. Wow.
You're not exactly from a family of wealth. So
Figures.
when you receive a letter from a grand noblewoman by the name of Elizabeth Bathory, they feel...
Elizabeth Bathory? That sounds like she's gonna assault and battery me. Right? Right? Yeah.
extremely honored. What could such a well-respected and rich woman want from your peasant family? Your parents wonder at first, and
your parents wonder at first, whatever would she want with us or our child? Perhaps she wants to buy the child. That would be great.
Then, on reading the letter, they discover that Elizabeth is looking out for the poor and just wants to teach you, their son, some etiquette.
Etiquette? Nobody mentioned to me anything about etiquette. I gotta stop putting myself emotionally into these videos. I'm there. I'm mentally there.
Overjoyed by this incredible offer, your parents send you off to the great Chaktisay Castle.
Ah, the Chuck E. Cheese castle.
What parents don't know is that they've just sent you to a castle we can rightly call one of the most evil places in the world.
One of the most evil places in the world.
I'm gonna do that every single time it's said.
Number 5. Chaktisay Castle. After hearing what happened there, you might think nothing tops it in the realms of evil, but we can assure you that there have been worse places.
Worse?
Elizabeth Bathory didn't have a very nice childhood.
She
When
didn't?
She was young, she was around a lot of violence.
I got a mustache and I'm inherently a violent person because of it.
Another matter that made her life hard was the fact that she had seizures. Back then, no one knew
That's
anything about
terrible.
neurons misfiring in the brain, so
Wait, that's what that is? Wow.
epileptic fits were a bit of a mystery. During the days of witch hunts, if a person had a seizure, some holy people might have put it down to the devil being...
Whoa! We found a witch. May we burn her?
inside them. But Elizabeth, being nobility and all, didn't suffer the terrible burden of experiencing a witch trial. One
Jesus.
thing doctors did back then sometimes to try
Whoa.
to cure
I know birds were doctors. Makes sense though if you think about it.
seizures was giving sufferers a dose of a healthy person's blood to...
Because birds give you diseases. Bird flu, duh. Bats, COVID, same thing. Bats are birds if you think about it. And then they have flies. It's a bird. Look at planes. It's a metal bird.
drink. And if that happened to Elizabeth as a child, it might account for utterly depraved behavior as an
Jesus.
adult. We're not gonna
Don't trust the
reveal
birds.
everything that woman did in her castle, but let's just
What else would she do in a castle? I mean, nothing bad.
say that if you've accepted that invite, you wouldn't have been taking any lessons on good manners. You'd have been tortured in the most despicable ways, perhaps burned,
What?
frozen, or even covered in honey and live ants.
No!
You also lost some body parts before your death, and that
What is she doing with those body parts? She's jostling that bone right there. Jeez, too.
That's why Elizabeth eventually got the nicknames the Blood Countess and Countess Dracula. What happened in the castle stayed in the castle for
What?
quite some time. But a lot of people working for the noblewoman knew what was going on. In fact,
What?
some of her staff helped her.
Some of the staff help. This is sadistic. I cannot believe that such a thing would exist in America. It does. It doesn't. This isn't Hungary in the 16th century. America was probably just as bad back then.
To find the people that would become become her victims. Elizabeth was eventually arrested and charged, but unbelievably she wasn't handed a death sentence.
Ha ha ha! There's nothing that you can do to me. I am royalty.
Punishment was that she had to stay confined in her castle, her actual home. You could say she got off lightly considering that she had
the
killed
poop
hundreds
Smith
of
here.
women. The exact figure is not known, but some historians put the number at 650.
That's incredibly close to 690 if you think about it. Just throwing that out there, guys.
That alone is mind-blowing. But if you care to research what she actually did to these
Wait,
victims,
her last name's
you will
Bath?
no doubt
I thought it was Battery this whole
agree that the
time.
castle in her hands became an evil place. The reason we're not going to tell you what happened is it's just too gory and
Come on!
YouTube doesn't like that kind of thing.
That's a fact!
Camp 22.
Wait, there's more than... Oh, I forgot.
It's not the most evil places. Most evil places. This is exciting now.
We're now going to talk about the gruesome topic of human experimentation. Here at the Info
Wait a minute. You're going to say something's too bad for YouTube and then you're just going to throw out a sexual reference like that? Jesus.
Graphic Show, we always like to give you something new. While Japan's horrific wartime human experimentation at its Unit 731 is nothing short of horrific, and all the ghastly things Nazi Dr. Josef Mengele did can bring tears to your eyes.
Nazi Dr. Josef Mengele did? That just sounds like an entirely made up name.
We're going to talk about a place we haven't featured much. Camp 22 was a place in North Korea where someone might have ended up if they'd been accused of the crime of wrong thought. They might also
Wrong
have committed
thought?
number.
Excuse me, ma'am. You're the wrong thought here. You gotta go.
We only know about the prison camps because defectors who'd spent some time there let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Conditions in
no.
the prison camp were bad enough without human experimentation.
But wait a minute. You can't let the cat out of the bag because that's a bad thought. And then you would just be in the camp. So you never leave the camp. Whoa.
One defector said when he was in the camp, around 25% of the prison population died each year. From
25%
starvation. The place was
starvation?
reportedly closed in 2012, but
That's really recent.
in the 1990s, something like 50,000 people were sent there.
50,000.
Always a life sentence, and so no one ever left the camp alive. Former guards and prisoners have said that the guards tortured the prisoners to the extent of inmates missing their eyes or other parts, with some of them looking like living skeletons. The human rights violations that happened there could fill a book, so we'll concentrate on the medical experiments only. One
Medical
prisoner
experience.
named Lee Soon-ok said at one point the camp wanted to test a new poison just to see how effective it was.
No.
Officers at the camp
It could be the COVID. It could be the Rona.
didn't bother with animal trials and went straight to human trials.
Well, at least he
They said
saved the
this about
animals.
50 women, most of whom were at Camp 22 for merely criticizing the government. They were told to eat some cabbage, and they were also told it contained poison. If they didn't eat it, those women were told their families on the outside would suffer.
Like, sir, we don't eat anything that's green. Don't tear apart my family photo. Yeah, look at their family. I mean, I don't know, that little boy looks like he's quite the handful, if you ask me.
Soon after the women ate the stuff, they started vomiting, and then all of them died within 20 minutes.
Jesus.
Other experiments included using gas chambers, and sometimes the people that entered those chambers were entire families. The outcome was, of course, the death of everyone. A scientist who defected in 2015 said chemical weapons were also tested on the subjects. On other occasions, prisoners would be rounded up and sent for surgery.
Like good surgery, like plastic?
They didn't need, of course, and the awful procedures would be done without any kind of
No, my wiener!
What was really scary is that when prisoners were chosen for such experiments, they would first see a van driving around the prison complex. That van would take them to their certain death.
Never get in the van, guys. Never get in the van. Oh, my God.
The vehicle was nicknamed the Crow, and it would turn up once or twice a month where the prisoners lived. Number 3, the Raft of Medusa.
Okay, that was a very quick transition, trying to, lighten it up. I think the creator of this video was like, oh, we should probably get over into something more positive to keep the retention up.
Here's the story.
Raft of Medusa. Interesting. I think she was a real person.
The Medusa left France for Africa. The short story is that it didn't get there. And that's
What?
Because it hit a sandbank. There are around 400 people on board.
That lady screamed. She must have been thrown over almost immediately. Everyone was like, yo, we can't deal with this. Like, just leave her at the sandbar forever.
And many of the folks managed to get onto small boats. The people left were in quite a fix, so some of them
Oh my God, we are in quite a fix.
quickly built a raft. 151 men and women got onto the raft, and the French officers in the boats said they would tow it. They didn't.
The French didn't do what they said they were going to do?
That's the first evil part of the story. After a few miles, they just cut the raft loose and all those people were left floating in the ocean.
Oh my god, that is so evil!
Behind them, they had a bag of biscuits that they hastily ate on the first day, and they had about 6 casks of wine. They had some fresh water too, but much of that was lost
I mean, the wine, though. Must have been good wine.
overboard when the men fought over it. As you can probably tell already, things then went from bad to worse. With no food and no water, what happened next was a survival of the fittest. On the first night alone, some 20
Look at that
people were
lady.
dead
She's
from either
beating
fighting
that
or
dude.
being washed overboard. Some accounts say that some people were just thrown overboard. By day 4, of the 152 people, only 67 of them were left. Many had died in fights. Some had died from dehydration.
Others died from eating each other's poop. They thought it was a brownie. It was not a brownie.
And some had taken their own lives. Seeing what was going on, they just threw themselves off the raft. This is how one survivor later explained the scene. 2 young sailors and 1 baker were not afraid to jump into the sea, thereby bringing their lives to an end. This was after bidding farewell to their friends. By day 8, some of those that were weak or wounded were killed, but since the fittest of the bunch were literally starving, they ate their victims. This is how
What? Ah, I've never had human.
that survivor described one of those nights. The unfortunates who had been spared by death during that terrible night fell upon the bodies that covered the raft, cut them into pieces, or devoured them as they were. He said some of the men refused to eat the dead at first and instead feasted on fabric from clothes and hats. But
That doesn't have any protein, does it?
when they saw just how much better the men who had eaten the dead looked, they joined in, if not somewhat less inhibited by the wine they'd drunk. It was by sheer luck on the 13th
Wine.
day that a ship called the Argus saw the raft floating in the ocean. We say by luck because the French authorities hadn't even sent out a search party. Let's remember that those who were left on the raft at the start were deemed less important people, and that's why the story's even more horrific.
Wait, somebody could pass judgment on somebody else like that? That's crazy. People suck.
As one historian once wrote,
I'm a historian. It actually happened.
Save the elite, and too bad if there are no more room for the others. That's not
Jeez,
to say there
ew.
weren't many good people on the raft. Some ate their dead friends, some men were buried at sea, and it was only out of sheer desperation that they turned to cannibalism. On the other hand, when they saw that some of the men were pretty much half dead, rather than share meat or wine with them or eat them, they just threw them overboard. For years
Jesus.
after, a lot of people criticized the men not for eating the dead.
You
but for
ate your
throwing the bodies
friends.
into the
You
sea.
ate your
When they were finally
friends.
rescued, there were 15 men still alive, although 5 of them would die shortly after being picked up by the Argus. What the
What
men had
happened?
been through has become one of the most talked about horrors in the history of mankind. We'll give you a
I never
happy
heard about it till
ending.
now.
This is how one of the survivors described the feeling on the raft when the men saw the approaching rescue.
Very bad.
We embraced one another and rejoiced in a manner bordering on insanity. Tears of happiness rolled down our dried up cheeks. You can call this event a tragedy more than an evil, but sometimes
Dude, how'd that guy get so ripped? Like, you can't, like, oh my god, he's just like fighting people and eating people. I guess it makes sense.
desperation can be an evil in itself. Number 2. The papacy under Pope John Paul
The
XII.
papacy.
So there
The
have been more
papacy.
evil places and people. But if you're a religious person, then you might argue that the evilest you could get would be if you were a degenerate religious leader.
Wait, a degenerate leader? I couldn't imagine.
Quite a few bad popes, but perhaps the worst of them all was the man that headed the Christian church from 955 until his death in 964. It's
Wow. That's, not how you tell time, really, but it doesn't seem like that long.
a question of what Pope John Paul XII did, but what he didn't do. He didn't do any good things, that's for sure. And he committed
Okay.
a long list of crimes. This
Let me
leader of the
hear.
church, it's said, shocked even the worst offenders of immorality in Rome. A man whose total depravity seemed to know no end. He
Tell
surrounded
me.
himself with women and turned his holy house into a kind of house of ill repute.
So far, I'm not passing judgment yet.
He took many lovers, some not exactly willing to go with him, and fornicated with him at the holy sites and also in the papal
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds terrible. This is a bad man. I'm glad he's dead.
palace. That pope has been accused of defiling the tombs of saints, of borrowing money from pilgrims to finance his bad gambling habit,
Oh, it's a Mario's coins. Give them back, please.
and has even been accused of blinding someone he didn't like. On
Whoa.
one occasion, it said he tortured and murdered a cardinal. If that's not bad enough, this man,
Those
who
poor
showed
birds.
about Christian, was said to have tried to call upon demons. One historian wrote that he had toasted
Did he succeed?
to the devil with wine. If you're religious, you can't really get more evil than that. Another historian wrote that John XII was a robber, a murderer, and incestuous person unworthy to represent Christ upon the pontifical throne.
Wait a minute. Doesn't seem like there were any other words in that book. Seems like a waste of paper.
This abominable priest soiled the chair of St. Peter for 9 entire years.
Every day pooped himself on the chair of St. Peter's.
Deserved to be called the most wicked of popes. We should note that some people that wrote bad things about this man might have had a reason to dislike him or even dislike Catholicism.
That's a weird
Catholics
shadow.
themselves have criticized this man, and so
Oh my
have
God.
many other historians. Number 1.
Oh, now we're getting to the really good stuff. Number 1, wherever witch hunts took place.
Witch hunts
Oh,
took
that's not
place.
specific.
There were many witch hunts around Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries.
And the Americas.
Innocent women were tortured and executed.
Puritans,
Witch
dude.
hunts, supposedly in the name of goodness, are up there with the most shameful things humans have ever done to each other. There were a lot of witch hunters, but we'll look at a person.
How do you go about being a witch hunter? Sounds like a pretty illustrious career. I feel like we need some in this day and age. I'll give up accounting. I'll go around the country. Oh wait, I can't do that. Pandemic.
Named Matthew Hopkins. He came from East Anglia in England, and he had the title.
He can't get around that little block.
We certainly don't want to upset our viewers from East Anglia, and we're not saying your wonderful part of England is evil, but back in the day, some pretty awful things went down there. As many as 300 alleged witches were executed in East Anglia and close by after being investigated by Hopkins from 1644 to 1646.
I'm coming with the stick. You're a witch. Let's. What is it? If a witch can float or something?
Did he know they were witches, you might ask? Well, sometimes the women might have been accused of being abnormal by some.